Hello, everyone. I'm broadcasting from my home office once again this year to report on this year's Microsoft Build Conference 2021. Like last year, this year's Build Conference was once again delivered virtually. There were a lot of things covered in the conference, and if you want to read a cheat sheet, go to news.microsoft.com/build-2021-book-of-news. I wanted to highlight the top 6 things that I saw at Build 2021. Coming in at number 6, Cosmos DB Serverless and PostgreSQL on Azure. Satya Nadella announced it in his keynote.
Cosmos DB has become the go-to database to power the world's most demanding mission-critical applications. New capabilities boost performance by more than 300% for these read-heavy workloads, and Rohan Kumar will share updates for Cosmos DB, Azure SQL, and our OSS databases that we are making to help you build and modernize high-performance apps at any scale.
At number 5, Azure Static Web Apps reached GA or general availability. An on-demand session called Build Serverless Full Stack Applications with Azure Static Web Apps and Azure SQL Database, kind of a mouthful, demonstrated how to use Azure Static Web Apps.
Today we're going to be learning about building serverless full stack applications with Azure Static Web Apps and Azure SQL Database. But again, today we're going to be focusing on that third module, which you can access at this short link here, aka.ms/con060.
At number 4, Azure Arc was introduced. This amazing service allows you to host Azure native services like Azure Functions, App Service, Logic Apps, Event Grid, and API management on premises or even in competing clouds. My favorite part was when Jeff Holland created a new Azure region on his laptop.
With the new Azure Arc capabilities, I can deploy our application services anywhere the same way I deployed to Azure just by changing the region. So let me go ahead and show you that now. How do I get this running on premises? Well, I'm using Azure Arc, so let's just go ahead and change the region. Here on my project, I've got this environments file. Now, previously we've been deploying to EastUS, so let's go ahead and create a new environment. We'll call it our Edge environment. I'm going to set the location to JeffUS. And you may be asking yourself, what's JeffUS? I've never heard of that region before, which makes sense because this is a custom location only available in my subscription. In fact, this is JeffUS. This laptop has Kubernetes running on it, and I've registered it with Azure Arc with the custom location JeffUS. So by running Azure Arc, I can now run the entire application platform right on this device next to those HVAC systems.
At number 3, as part of the upcoming .NET 6 release, a new way to write minimal APIs. Here to introduce them is Scott Hunter, Director of Program Management for .NET.
Now let's talk about what we're doing to make it faster for you to build for the cloud. For .NET 6, we're building upon C# top-level programs to provide you with a lightweight way to build ASP.NET Web APIs with minimal code. No usings, no class definitions needed. This is an easy way to build APIs that can immediately take advantage of cloud scale without all the ceremony and boilerplate code of traditional controller-style-based web APIs. And when your project starts to get too big, we'll provide tooling to automatically convert these to ASP.NET MVC controllers. It's just another option for quickly building APIs that don't need all the bells and whistles of controllers and startup classes. And they'll be part of .NET 6.
Up next at number 2, Visual Studio 2022. Mads Christensen introduces one of the major new features in VS 2022.
All right, so I think I can kind of guess what the answer is going to be, but what is the biggest addition coming to Visual Studio 2022 Preview 1?
Well, I think definitely the thing that's gotten most attention is the shift from 32-bit to 64-bit for Visual Studio, the main application itself. So that's what everyone's talking about. That is the biggest thing, I believe.
64-bit is pretty awesome, but there are a lot more features coming that were highlighted in the conference. I hope you'll check out those sessions. At number 1, .NET 6 performance improvements, especially hot reload. Once again, here's Scott Hunter.
We're working on a bunch of productivity improvements everywhere that will help you build and debug your apps much quicker. We commonly refer to this as the inner loop. It includes build time performance improvements in both the CLI as well as Visual Studio. You can see here that ASP.NET build times have significantly improved as compared to .NET 5. We're also working on bringing hot reload technologies to all project types. That means you can make UI and code changes while running, and your app will immediately refresh. No more death by 1,000 F5s. No more start, stop, make a change, repeat. There's no process restart, so the state of your app is maintained. And you can optionally attach the debugger.
Hot reload is probably the biggest feature I'm looking forward to in .NET 6. Okay, now on to the final item. I know what you're thinking. I never told you it was zero-based, and it feels like we have an off by one error, but seriously, at number 0, Power Platform uniting pro devs and citizen devs together. There was a lot of discussion about how pro developers can enable citizen developers on the Power Platform, and how the Power Platform can lift an already large burden from pro developers to have to build everything. Julie Strauss, the PM director of the Power Platform, introduces this.
We will quickly cover the services that make up the Power Platform and why you, as pro developers, should care about the Power Platform. If you look at the Power Platform, first we have Power BI, which is a low-code way to analyze, explore, and visualize your enterprise data. Then we have Power Apps, which is our low-code approach for building web and mobile applications. We also have Power Automate, our low-code approach to deliver workflow and robotic process automation. And then last, Power Virtual Agent, which is our no-code approach to building chatbots and conversational agent. The key to deliver low-code approach that we empower every type of developer to go faster. And it is when these multidisciplinary teams come together that you can truly scale. So you can ask, why do I need to scale? I suspect that you're already feeling the pressure of what we think of as the app gap challenge. The world is changing, and there's just an unprecedented demand for driving digital transformation, for delivering apps faster. And if the current pressure isn't enough, over the next 5 years, more than 500 million apps and services will be developed and deployed. The demand for business applications is greater than ever, growing 5 times faster than IT departments really can deliver. But rest assured, the Power Platform can help you scale. We will allow you to extend your development potential, not only because you can deliver apps faster yourself, but also because you have the opportunity to collaborate with the business, with the citizen developers in your organizations, where bringing it back to this notion of fusion teams, you can tap into this unharnessed talent pool of non-technical app developers.
Thanks, Julie. As pro developers, we need to do a better job of enabling our citizen developers in our organizations. We'll probably look at this in future forums. So there you have it, my 7 top 6 things I saw during Build 2021. Actually, I had about 20 things that could have made this list, but in the interest of time, I narrowed it down to these items. I now want to take a moment and demonstrate some new features coming in Visual Studio 2022. Some of these features are actually available in Visual Studio 2019, Build 10.16, behind some flags. You can turn those on under Tools, Options, Text Editor, C#, Advanced. Let's take a look. Let's launch Visual Studio 2022. We will create a new console app. And let's just call it VS 2022 Features. And sure, let's do .NET 6 Preview. Why not? Okay, we have our new project. Now, editor config files are a great way to define consistent code style and code quality preferences in your code base. Let's go ahead and add one. Click Add, New Item. Search for config, and here's an editor config file. And when we add that, it'll create a default for us. Now, new to Visual Studio 2022 is this editor config designer that they've added. So you have formatting, code style, and analyzers. So if you want to see the actual file, press F7, and this is what the editor config file looks like. So the addition of the designer will make this a lot easier. All right, we'll close these. Next, I want to demonstrate a new feature called Inheritance Margins. To demonstrate this, let's create a new interface. And for this interface, I'm just going to call it isample.cs. And we'll just add a property in here and we'll call it like sample ID. Okay. Then I want to create a couple of classes that inherit from this. So I'm just going to create something called basic sample.cs, and it's going to implement isample, and I'll just let it implement the interface. And let's go and do the same thing with a secondary sample. It too will implement isample. So now if we go back to the isample file, you'll see here that there's this is what we call the inheritance margin. It shows you the two different classes that inherit from isample or implement isample, and you can click on either one of those and it'll take you there. Likewise, it has the reverse. If you see this one has the up arrow, it shows you the interface that it's implementing. Obviously you can see it right here, but it'll take you right to it. So that's what interface margins does. I want to show it one more, this time with an abstract class called abstract_sample.cs, and we will mark this as abstract. We'll also have a sample ID in here, and we'll just, because it's an abstract class, let's have a public void, just a sample method on here, just to show that it is an abstract class. And then let's add another class called abstract implementation, and it will inherit from our abstract sample. There you go. You can see that the inheritance margin works with interfaces, abstract classes, as well as classes. It does the same thing, shows you back and forth, connects them together, makes that easy to use. Very cool new feature. For our next demo, I want to show the new feature called removed unused references and copy and paste references. So to do this, I'm just going to use the abstract sample class here, and I'm going to I need to add Newtonsoft JSON. So let's go to Manage NuGet Packages, and we'll bring in Newtonsoft, number 1 on the list. And while we're here, let's bring in Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. In fact, let's just do SQL Server. Install that. So sample ID equals 1. Let's create a new property that's a string. We'll call this sample string. And we'll come down here and say sample string equals JSON convert dot serialize object sample ID. Okay, and we'll resolve this reference. So we have Newtonsoft JSON in here. I'm going to add using Microsoft.Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. So I have Newtonsoft JSON that we added as a package. We added the Microsoft Entity Framework Core SQL Server as a package, but we're clearly not using that anywhere. Wouldn't it be nice to go through and remove all unused references from our project? So now it says, I've found Microsoft.Entity Framework Core is a package that you're referencing that's unused. You can choose to keep it or remove it. So let's hit apply, remove. Okay, it removed it. I don't know why it doesn't remove the usings yet. But if we go back to our NuGet package dependencies, you will see that it's removed it from the dependency. Okay, so I want to now copy this sample method out of the abstract class, and just for fun, I'm going to go paste it into the abstract implementation. But what I wanted to show was this cool new feature. Now you notice that this sample method has a reference to this JSON convert. Now when I pasted that in, it automatically pasted the using statement in with it. And that's a cool new feature. Here's another new feature that they've added. This requires a key combination of Shift plus Enter. So let's see if I can do this. I want to create a void. I'm just going to call it turn string of s double of val. Now normally what I would do here is I would go past the parentheses and I'd put a set of curly braces. But at this point, if I just hit Shift Enter, it automatically adds the curly braces and puts my cursor in position to start typing something. So that's a cool new feature called Shift Enter. And that works on properties, it works on methods, and a number of other things. You may have noticed that as I've been typing that the IntelliSense is greatly improved in Visual Studio 2022. Let's just try some things here. If I start typing if, now I didn't type that. It says if s equals null. Using the artificial intelligence, it is looking at all my possibilities. It knows s is something that's coming in, but that's not what I really want. So I can say, if I just say s, and I can say not equal to, now it still wants to put null, but I'm going to just say string. Notice that it's selected string.empty, which is what I want. If I just hit tab, it will complete it for me. At this point, I can hit Shift Enter, and it completes the curly braces. So there's a combination of things going on there. IntelliSense has also been improved for pound-if directives. So if I put pound-if, then I start typing, notice that we get a whole bunch of prompts here in our IntelliSense. So I'm just going to say if debug, then pound end if. I can just hit tab and it'll accept it. So it's really smart at predicting. It knows contextually what I'm wanting to type. Now that I have my pound if debug there, watch what happens when I just hit enter. I haven't typed anything. It assumes that I want to do a console write line there. And I could hit tab to accept that. So it's really kind of interesting. It's just smart. Let's just put it, we'll just leave it at that. All right, let's add a person class. Because we do this often enough. And I'm going to do a prop string first name. If I just hit enter and go to the next line, look at that. It thinks that, hey, you probably want a last name too. So hit tab to accept. Hit enter, go to the next line. How about address? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. City, region, postal code, country. Let's see, it's going off the screen here. Phone, yeah. And we could keep going, fax, so on and so forth, but that's enough. You get the idea. IntelliSense has examined enough classes. It understands the kind of common things that go inside of a person class, and it's really helping us out. It's writing our code for us. A little bit creepy, to be honest. Okay, I'm going to go back to our abstract implementation here, and I'm just going to write some code. Let's write a list of person called samples equals, and I'm just going to do new. Let's do a samples. I'm not going to hit dot, but it knows that I want to add a new person, so I'm going to add tab. If we had something in the constructor, which we don't, so I'm just going to say first name and equals, and we'll say Bob, and then we'll do a last name equals, and it's completing all this for me. It's crazy. We'll say Bob Smith, and we'll do another one, samples dot add new person. We'll do a first name equals, oops, and we'll say Fred, oops, last name equals Smith. So a lot of IntelliSense there to help me complete things. So now I'm going to do an if samples dot where and last name. I'm going to say where last name equals, and then it doesn't know there what I want to put, but I'm going to say Smith, and I'm going to say dot any. Then in here we'll do a console dot writeLine, and it says a val. Yeah, that's fine. So this is the next feature I want to show. You'll notice that I wrote this link statement inside of the if in an inefficient way. So if I right click on this and I say quick actions and refactoring, it gives us a simplify link expression. It says, hey, you could simplify this by taking the where out and just do it this way. And we'll apply that. And we have samples.any. So it's pretty smart. It understands how to simplify link expressions. Okay, and the final feature I want to show is the IntelliSense for method completion. So now that I have this method turn, I'm going to call it from our constructor here. And all I want to do is type in turn. And notice how when I typed in turn, it prompted me and says, hey, you want to put the first parameter is a string. The string that you have available is sample string. Do you want that one? Sure. And then the second parameter is a double, it's a val, and so it's suggesting the number 1, but in this case I actually want to put sample ID in. So it's really smart at doing method completion. The other thing you may have noticed in here is every so often you'll see these things like these items and whatnot showing up here, or this little small person showing up here. And those are called hints, and I have some of them turned on. But at any time if you hit Alt F1 and hold it, it will put in hints temporarily all over the place here. So you notice this time it puts in a hint that tells me that this is a predicate and that this is a value. So that's using Alt F1. So even if you don't have hints turned on and you hit Alt F1, you will get hints. Wow, that was a few quick demos for Visual Studio 2022 and some of the new productivity enhancements that Microsoft is working on. I look forward to the release, which I believe is expected sometime next year. Don't forget, you can always go back and watch the sessions at mybuild.microsoft.com. Thanks for watching.